sometimes it's very simple to take that step forward, but the reason why people don't want to do the simple things is because they're sometimes hard. So do the hard things, create value for people.
Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous. Mindset stuff we're hinting at below the surface. If I put my mindset as I go and help people and I try to become an entrepreneur, is ultimately just someone who is called to be a problem solver for others and help other people. And you can build a business around that. That can be profitable for you and your family, for generations of employees that can dedicate to, like, they can basically align with your mission and to your cause. And obviously they're getting value from it too, because you're paying them and whatever other benefits they receive. But I just want to put that idea of there are multiple ways to solve a problem, and your creativity is infinite, and sky's the limit on how you can provide value to other people. And I think that is a concept so central to A Dangerous Man, where we talk about providing value for others.
Yeah,
and that's kind of at the heart of it in a lot of ways.
Kind of back to the two ways of thinking that Alex Hormozi goes over. So you have the original example that you used is like, hey, you want to make 110 sales. How many salespeople are you going to hire? Because each one of them is going to generate this many sales. However, you could also think about it differently. It's like, well, I could buy sales training and train the reps that I currently already have. And now instead of, doing 25, maybe in 100 calls, maybe it increases them by, now they're selling 30. So now you only need, maybe 4 instead of 5.
Right. And that's like a more creative solution to a maybe seemingly straightforward problem. Yeah.
So it's like, well, you could hire more reps, but then you're going to have to, obviously, unless they're on commission only, have to keep paying their salary or whatnot.
Right.
Whereas if you were to say I buy this, $25,000, I'm just throwing out a random number, $25,000 sales training for your, 3 existing reps, and you hire an extra one, that money that you spent on the sales training is cheaper than hiring another sales rep.
Yeah.
So it's kind of actually through that way, because you're being creative, you actually are saving money / making more money.
Right. Yeah, it's a great example of being able to just improve the efficiency of these guys and helping, basically it's hey, I think the typical model that we talk about is hey, go to college, learn some skills at college, apply to be an employee at some business, and be able to just be a good employee and be a yes man who does what they're told, and kind of provide value just by being hey, we need somebody that will just take the trash out, and somebody that will write code and do this. And if there's a problem here, they'll take care of that. It's okay, we'll hire people to do that work. And it's you basically just do that job over and over and over and over again, but you're getting a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about entrepreneurship, or even just maybe you have a position as an entrepreneur within a business, where it's hey, we actually give you so much freedom and liberty to be creative and come up with solutions and grow the business, and we'll incentivize that.
Yeah, that's kind of what franchisers are in a lot of restaurant chains. If they allow for a franchisee, I think that's the name for it.
Yeah.
Where they I run this specific location of, say, I don't know, a McDonald's or something. And I make revenue off of that, and I'm able to grow that. And if I make enough money off that, then I can get another one or something like that. So I can kind of grow my own business that's within another business.
Right. And that I think that's great too. It's as a man, we understand this concept that we talked about in a former episode about having control and being able to express our own like vision and creativity and just like be able to execute as a man, and how central that is to being dangerous.
Yeah.
It's like ultimately I want to be able to be creative. I want to be able to come up with solutions that help people and that push and progress society and the types of, stuff that people deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's you start your own business or whether you have a genuine channel to be able to express that in your life, maybe it's through like being in a franchise. It's being able to do that, to provide that value, to be able to care for others, and to just be able to, I'm just kind of contemplating on that, how central that is in my life and in my journey of like really discovering it's like I don't just want to be told what to do and do it.
Yeah.
I want to be able to go and make a difference.
You don't want a job where you kind of show up, clock in, do the same work that you pretty much always do with like a little bit of variety maybe based on what they want you to do that day, and then clock out and you get paid.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. That's kind of why I'm drawn to, it's like, I'd rather have like where I show up and like, hey, maybe I could make more money today if I put in if I work a little harder, work a little smarter, actually solve a problem in a creative way. And I'm willing to take a little bit of a pay cut initially in order to learn some of those skills to be able to do that.
Yeah. Would you like to just kind of tell our listeners, Adam, kind of what opportunity that you've been plugging into lately as far as being able to channel and express that in your own life? What kind of business opportunity you're plugged into?
I do sales, specifically like direct to home sales, as they call it in the business. It's really just a fancy word for saying door to door.
In the biz.
Yeah, in the biz, they call it direct to home. We come directly to you. But yeah, it's security sales, so selling security systems. It's a really cool environment, I think, because it's like, hey, you can, if you learn like the skill really well, that will equate to you making way more money. Cause I mean, it's 100% commission, which is kind of daunting for some people, but it's like, if you think about it, if you're a business owner, if your business doesn't make money, you don't make money.
Right.
So it's kind of like that mentality where it's like
complete ownership.
Yeah. Complete ownership. And some people are like, oh, but you're not guaranteed to make money. That's not a very good idea. It's like, yeah, but you can also make a stupid amount of money if you're good. Like there's guys that like, it's their second year doing it and they're making over $100,000 and like, they don't have a college degree.
Yeah. And that's what's cool about like what we were talking about earlier, Adam, of like providing value to employees, where it's like, you talked about the sales training aspect. Yeah. It's like, well, what if we do hire you and you don't have a college degree, but we'll provide like every means of being able to grow yourself as a sales professional.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, okay, great. I can trade my time and my effort, my skills to go make money here, but I could also get better and scale this.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about the sales opportunity you're in is like, I could actually get to the point where I am recruiting guys to come join me, and I can literally branch off and create my own sales team, go to my own city.
Yeah. And
I can be kind of the guy who's more intelligent that can train up these newer guys.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about kind of what that opportunity is within your direct home?
Yeah. It's crazy because you can, like, once you have the skill of being able to sell really well, then you can also recruit other guys. You don't have to like learn sale before recruiting because, I mean, you're still in a team. So people who are better than you at selling in the team can train people that you recruit.
Yeah.
But kind of the vision is at a certain point, you're good enough at selling to teach other people how to sell really well. And then you can just recruit people based off, hey, I can teach you how to sell. And if you sell like I do, you make over $100,000 a year.
Wow.
Kind of thing. And that is an offer that can be very good for a lot of people. And it can be like as simple as that. It's like, hey, all I need from you is being able to really work hard and do whatever it takes to get there.
That's the mindset piece, guys, of like, ultimately it's like, oh, well, that sounds hard. Direct to home, door to door sales. Like that sounds like a grind. It's like, it fucking is a grind.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah,
that shit ain't easy. Like I went out and did that for 3 months and I decided to go into digital marketing instead. But it's tough work.
Yeah.
We're not going to lie about that.
But
I think
it's
what's
hard.
interesting is there's this opportunity to build this into something where sky's the limit on how you can invest yourself. It's like you could create your own business, your own product, your own offer. You could also take this business that already has a product and they already have a channel for you to go and build a team and to create your own business on selling their product. And like these opportunities exist, guys. And like you have to have zero education to get into them. And when you get into them, sure, you might have a total learning curve disadvantage. It might take you 2-3 years to really get dialed in on learning this skill of sales. But like you're literally getting training content. You're getting a team around you. You're getting the opportunity. And guys are coming out and doing, I mean, the guys that lead some of these teams are making like $300K a year from their team and their own sales.
Yeah.
Some of these guys are making millions after being over here for 20 years. And they didn't go and create their own business.
Not even 20 years. Not even 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
like 10 or less, actually, right?
Yeah. And really, like if you're making $1 million a year, doesn't matter what you're doing, everyone's going to consider, oh yeah, you're rich.
Yeah.
Because like I was just even looking at the statistics the other day and it's like, okay, if you're making over 300 grand, I want to say, you're in the top 1% of the United States.
It's crazy.
If you're making over 125 grand, you're in the top 1% of the world.
Wow.
So like even to think about like, wow, I'm like, even if you're making like 50 grand a year, you're still like richer than most of the world. Yeah. Like more than 50%. I don't know the numbers are off the top of my head.
You can hardly afford to like live off of 50K, especially with a family. That's what's crazy about, with inflation and everything these days.
Well, the thing is that you have to realize is in America, like our living expenses are a lot higher, but also the way we live is a lot better.
Yeah.
Or like more lavish.
So you'd have to have more money to live the lifestyle that
the average
American would.
Yeah. Like if you think about it, there's a ton of people in India that just live in slums and they have basically a shack that they live in and they eat rice and beans every day. And other than that, they're just trying to work and, not starve and do whatever hustle they may have to do, whether it's like working in a factory or something or trying to figure something out just to get by.
Wow.
And they don't have a TV. They don't have a car.
Right.
Heck, I don't even know if they have a couch. So, the fact that like in America, it's basically like standard, like, hey, I have an apartment or a place. Pretty much everyone's got a TV or some kind of entertainment thing, whether it's like a personal computer or a TV or a gaming console or something like that just exists for entertainment, but that entertainment's actually like relatively expensive.
Yeah.
Like if you think about even having internet, like you pay a decent amount a month for internet, and also everyone's got like their streaming services, and all that adds up, and even having a car is expensive. Like, and there's a lot of people that just don't own cars in the world.
Well, and what's interesting though is like this conversation in most circles that I've been around would lead to, so just be grateful for what you have. But it's like, well, I think what's interesting is that because we live in America and because we have this opportunity, it's like if you're just sitting around the couch being content off of 50K, you're wasting an opportunity that's in front of you to become great and be able to help people in a way that these people in the slums can't. Yeah,
there might be a person in the slums that you just give the opportunity that you have and they take it to the moon. So it's like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, yes, be grateful for what you have. It's important to be grateful for what you have, but
always.
Oh yeah, always be grateful for what you have, but also be grateful for what you're going to do.
Yeah. And don't let that justify you being content with being less than you could be.
Yeah. It's kind of like you don't want to squander what you've been given in life. And I think a lot of people, like, especially in America, are like, oh, my growing up, everything sucked. It was terrible and all this stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, but I think a lot of those are actually like relational hardships more than monetary hardships. Like your parents weren't good to you or something like that. But But it comes to monetary, like, but also a lot of people will also use like not having enough money, growing up. Like, oh, we didn't have money for this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, but you had a TV and you had internet. Like, you had it better than a lot of people. And I think it's just in our culture, we do a lot of like keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, where it's like a lot of comparison. It's like, oh, he has a BMW or a Mercedes. Like, I need a BMW or a Mercedes. It's like, actually, you really don't. You can have a Toyota or a Honda or a Ford and be fine. Like,
yeah. Like, right. You could be well off here.
Now, I'm not saying like having a BMW or a Mercedes is a bad thing, because they're nice, but it's kind of like, don't make that the, oh, I need to have that thing so I look a certain way.
Right. It's like, ultimately, like, our calling as a man isn't about like fitting a certain stigma of how we look or what we have, but it's like, ultimately it's the core of our character, right? It's let's go and be proactive and build good character. Let's be proactive and gain skills that can make a difference. And let's go and be proactive. And just like spiritually as well, like form ourselves. And I think a lot of people are just like way too comfortable in what they literally, like, they born in the same town and they die in the same town and they did the same thing that their parents did, and their circumstances never changed. And I think that's definitely the calling for some people. But like for myself, for a lot of entrepreneurs, I think for a lot of men, even, especially in America, we have this opportunity to go and to become something bigger. And like, there's so many people, like I was in a conversation like a few months ago, I was talking to somebody and they're like, man, I'm just hungry to be around people that are going and wanting to become better. And they're wanting to go and start their own business. Like, I'm working in construction and I want to get out of this and I want to go do something. And they just have this like desire in their hearts. And there's so many guys that, you know, they're just longing for someone to grab them by the hand and pull them up into more purpose.
Yeah.
And like they know there's a mission on their heart. And they're so depressed and lonely and lost in like the shithole of a life that doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think there's something very deep in a man that wants to have more purpose than they currently have. And I think that continues. So the more purpose you have, the more purpose you want until you can make it as big as possible. Because it's like, well, see how far I can take this. But also a bigger purpose usually ends up being, hey, how can I provide value for more people? How can I fix problems for more people?
Absolutely.
And really, like, when thinking about like, oh, I want to, you know, make a bunch of money and do all these things and have a nice car and have a big house and all those things. And it's like, well, wanting those things isn't necessarily bad, but the thing is, it's like, if you just do those things, like just for that, like, you know, you might end up just like selling drugs in order to get that, which is
right.
Not providing value for people, because that's a vice and people are going to be drug addicts and then end up, you know, doing terrible things. But if you decide, hey, I'm actually going to get good at something and provide value for people, and you could provide a ton of value for people, in a way of business, you're going to make money. You're going to become wealthy, because so it's basically like the money follows your skills and the value that you're providing for people.
Yeah. And that's not far off at all from even what we believe as Christians in the gospel of like going out and loving and serving people.
Yes.
You know, and it's like so many of these concepts overlap in a way of like these saints that have gone and done these great things, and they've cared for people. They've cared for people that were lost and lonely and had nobody to love them or to be friends with them.
Yeah.
And they went out of their way to go and help and serve these people.
Yeah.
And, you know, we live in a world where it's like, if you aren't going and constantly giving, you're going to be super inward turned, super selfish, super insecure.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment you turn and stop looking at your own insecurities and your own problems, and you go and start helping and loving and serving and providing value for others, that's when a man's life can change.
Yeah.
It can literally flip around. And all of a sudden, these guys report they have more happiness, more joy, more purpose, more focus.
Yeah, granted, I have had some like smaller conversations with a bunch of people where it's like, oh, but you can only give so much. Like, you can only like love people so much and help them out so much before they just like start using you. And it's like, well,
yeah,
that's because you're being dumb about it. Like, obviously, like, you want to eventually teach a man to fish rather than just give a man a fish. Like, yeah. If you only have so many fish, yeah, you can only give so many away. But if you know the skill of teaching, you can teach an infinite number of people how to fish.
Yeah, there's a concept that I learned when I served the homeless in Denver, Colorado for 2 years, the streets of downtown Denver. And the concept we learned was it's probably a bigger conversation. We'll probably make another podcast episode around it. We definitely will. It's called boundaries. And I'll introduce it simply as this. Like when we're helping the homeless, like we can either do two things. We can enable them, or we can I forget the term for the not enabling them, but it's basically you enable them or you actually serve them in a way that's respectful of who they are as a person. And the way I describe that is like, if I just go and give them everything they need all the time, if I just give them money and I give them blankets and I give them food and I give them a free house and I give them Medicare and everything you could possibly, any possible benefit or government endorsement you could give them, or just my own free will, it's like these people will often just be super content to stay where they're at and could keep just like letting people do it all for them. And so it's like we want to tread this line of like we want to give value and we want to love them, but we need to recognize for each individual person, are we enabling behavior and are we enabling circumstances, or are we genuinely loving and helping and serving them? And it's honestly very tough.
Yeah.
Because you want to help them, but sometimes it's like, this is only going to make them take less ownership in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd often just opt for, I want to provide relational value, because a lot of these people, the biggest problem they have is just being lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And so we build a lot of value of just like being able to be a friend and be someone that could care for them. Not as much in like providing for every need as much as every emotional or relational kind of need.
Yeah, and John, you'll probably be able to speak to this a little bit more than I can, but like from conversations I've had with like homeless people, they often have some kind of like relational difficulties in their life, and that's one of the reasons why they're on the street.
Yeah.
So really, part of it's like, oh, well, if they figured out some of their relationships a little bit better, they may not be on the street.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like they have to just make that decision. But also, like, if you're just enabling them and just handing them money, like if you think about it, you can go work a job for 20 hours or $20 an hour and make, for 8 hours. So you're making $160 a day. But, if someone's panhandling and just asking people for money and they somehow, make
the same amount.
Make the same amount, do you think they're ever going to go get a job?
No.
Yeah. Because it's like, why would I, work harder to make the same amount of money?
When people just give it to me when I ask.
Yeah. But the problem is really those people that, you're asking for handouts is actually you're almost putting a burden on those people. And, if you have like a ton of people asking for handouts, that's just a bunch of money that's getting thrown at them for stuff. And, homeless people may not spend their money on the best things, like may spend it on alcohol, drugs. Not that's always the case, but that is something that they could definitely spend it on.
Yeah, many do.
Yeah.
Every single person I met on the streets had a different story and had different circumstances, but there are a lot of overlaps with the reason they're even on the streets was because of addiction in the first place. And so it's actually sad to realize like these people are hurting and they're like have this addiction over their lives that they haven't been able to shake yet. And so it's like, I don't want to enable or feed that addiction, but I want to see this person as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're able to look at people not as just like a means to be used for our own gain, but we see them as an individual with their own ambitions, their own dreams and values, their own interests, and you start to engage with them and ask them about and learn about those things, it really opens your mind to really the amount of value you could provide somebody, and just the amount, like, you can almost start to visualize what this person could be if they stepped into who they were.
Yeah.
And that left me like in tears some days, because I was like, I see this person on the streets in raggedy clothing, you know, and some of these people are like literally, they literally have needles and are doing heroin underneath their shirt while they're talking to us, because they're so addicted, but they don't want to, like, they don't want us to go away because they care about our friendship so much, because it means so much to them. And I can like see this person and hear that they want to, like, their dream is to go like care for kids and help them like in the hospital. And like, I can see this person caring for kids in the hospital and helping them be that. And I just see what stands between them and where they're kind of like what their mission or what fulfilling kind of who they are could be. And it's crazy to be able to visualize that for people. And I think like that's what really could launch a great business, is like I could visualize a movement of people I could help and who they could become and what problems I could solve to help them get there, and be able to go and do that.
Yeah.
And really make the world a better place. And also people are more willing to pay for that stuff because they want the solutions that you've been able to figure out for them. And that's when you have a lot of very ethical business owners who are doing these incredible things. And that's what we really want to encourage as a man of, like, you know, if that inspires you guys, like, if that's something that really speaks to your heart, you know, sky's the limit on what you could do with your life. And if you're that guy who is just like not content with where you're at in your own job, or you just like, I want to go and help people and provide value for people, I want to be creative and come up with problem solving, you probably have a calling to be an entrepreneur. You probably have a calling to find a channel, a business you could be a part of, a movement you could start or join that could allow you to that space to do that. And just like, one thing we're going to talk about more in the future is like what gets in the way of that. And I just want to say, like, whatever stuff comes to mind of like, well, I couldn't do it because like I live here and I would need to like live closer to the place where I want to do that. Or like, I only make this much, I can't afford to be able to like to do this type of a mission. Or, you know, I couldn't start a business without money. Or like, yeah, if I get money, I'll just become a terrible person. It's like, we have these limiting beliefs or these types of problems that need to be solved in order for us to be in a place to help people. And I just want to say, like, that stuff, as valid as it might seem, is just a bunch of bullshit that can and will be sorted through, because you can and will become the person you're meant to be. And start to believe it, even if you don't see what that's like, what that could be yet. And I hope to kind of share my journey and my story with that more, because I've been in a place where I've been so depressed where I didn't want to do anything. I couldn't visualize working a job that I hated. I couldn't visualize helping anybody or be able to make a difference at all, or that anyone cared about me. And the pivot that I've made into being able to realize like what I could offer as value to people, that's what drives my purpose. That's what drives my why.
Yeah.
That's what gives me excitement. And, man, there's a lot of fucking mindset changes that need to happen.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit.
It's almost all mindset changes.
And I'm almost just so pissed saying this, because like there's so much fucking bullshit that gets in the way of what people say about you, naysayers and haters, just comparing ourselves on the internet, on Instagram, on TikTok. Yeah. It's like, there's a lot of great resources, but there's also a lot of this shit.
It's
and
literally
like,
everywhere.
Yes. And I just want to say, like, you are better than that. Like, you are fucking better than that. And I just want to like call anybody who's listening right now, start to believe and think bigger. If it seems fucking crazy, you're thinking big enough. If it doesn't seem crazy, like, you need to start to think bigger, because there are a million, it's literally the convergent and the divergent ways of thinking. There are ways and multiple solutions to get to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And you can't even see one yet. And there's start to open your mind up to that, and it will come.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like just simple, like, oh, like this is getting in the way. so I can't do it. And it's like a very simple, like, oh, you just need to move in order to get that, like, move where you're living in order to get this opportunity. And it's like, oh, it would be really hard to move, so I'm not going to move. I don't want to do that. But it's like, did you try it? Like,
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very simple to take that step forward. But the reason why people don't want to do the simple things is because they're sometimes hard. So do the hard things.
Like the summer sales, the door to door.
Yeah. It's really hard. It's really, really hard, but it's very simple. You're having the same conversation over and over again.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's just hard because it's very much in your head and you have to deal with a lot of rejection. But that being said, do hard things, create value for people.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on the Dangerous Man podcast. Hopefully you guys have a better idea of how to create value for others and just start to think bigger than you have been. We're excited to continue taking you on this journey as we ourselves grow into becoming the Dangerous Man. Join us next time. Stay dangerous.